All right, welcome back to the Kansas City Star podcast. I'm Sam McDowell, sports reporter with the Star, joined again this week after a week off by Ike Opara, sporting Kansas City defender. Ike, thanks again, as always, for joining us.
Yeah, I hope every avid listener out there could handle a week off from us. We were too busy trying to clinch the playoff spot and our seeding, and we've done our home field advantage at least. So, yeah, let's get it rolling.
You guys have a huge match on Sunday, but what we really want to know about, what actual Twitter followers were asking me about, was your BFFs coming to town with Benny Feilhaber and LAFC.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Latif. It's going to be great to see Benny. We have I don't like to hang with the enemies before games and whatnot, but yeah, he's one of the guys that I'll make an exception for, and we'll have some smack talking, and it'll be good to see him, and it'll be good to play against them again, and it'll be, I think he'll get the cheers and the recognition that he deserves from our fans. I think he did a really good job here, and I think the fans really appreciated that. But then, when the minute, one starts and we kick off, by all means, feel free, Cauldron, to boo him hard. I've told him that I'm going to spread the word to the Cauldron, and I've actually been really nice to him because I've thought about making this week dedicated all towards Benny, but I decided not to on Monday.
I talked to him on the phone a couple nights ago, and there will be a story on the Star's website on Friday afternoon, but he mentioned the Cauldron, and he's interested to see what the reaction is going to be. He thinks there's going to be some chants thrown at him on Sunday.
Yeah, hopefully they have a tifo up of him, and it's something that it's a little embarrassing. That would be great, but no, it will be interesting. I don't know if he'll even hear it when he's playing in the game or not, but it'll be one that when we look back, we'll see kind of what the reaction was. So it's exciting. It'll be fun, and it's a big game. So it's going to be magnified. The intensity is going to be high. We're looking forward to getting after it.
All right, well, there's probably really no great segue for this, but today's topic that we're talking about is the NCAA, specifically the payment of athletes or lack thereof, and that's obviously been in the news this week, very much local here to Kansas City with KU, part of the Adidas trial, the FBI probe in New York, what's going on, and that specific trial revolves around shoe companies, and Adidas specifically potentially paying athletes. There was convictions for 3 guys convicted of it's almost kind of funny the way that they phrase it, but defrauding the universities to pay the athletes to get them to go there and help their basketball teams. But what is your just overall take on what we heard in the news with that?
Yeah, I mean, with this set of news and the companies and paying athletes to attend those universities, I don't particularly care one way or another.
You don't care if they shoe companies are involved in paying them?
No, at all. I think also from being a professional athlete in the perspective of there are 15, 16-year-olds in our locker room making some coin for 15, 16-year-olds, and you treat them as men. And I think if it was legal, I mean it wouldn't be a big deal to begin with. I think this view differs from when they're actually in the universities and should they be paid, and I think we'll touch on that moving forward. But to attend a university, to me it doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's almost trying to figure out why shouldn't they be allowed to take that money? I mean, really, in theory, if you are a computer science wizard and some company or wants to hire or pay you $100,000 to attend whatever Syracuse University's its computer engineering or science program or department, why shouldn't you take that money that's being offered to you? It's kind of a tricky I think subject, but at the same time it's only tricky because there's just how do I put this? There's just a lot of negative answers without solutions. I think people, don't really have, an idea of how to, legalize or how they want to express, themselves, and they just say no, and don't follow up with a reason. To me, it's like it doesn't impact my life one way or another. What's the worst that it's going to happen? Are you worried that a 16 or 17, 18-year-old on campus is going to have so much money and not know what to do with it? I mean, what better time? I mean, if you're going to college, you should be taking classes that help you manage money, or it's at the point of college is for self-betterment, whatever it is, education, academics, athletics. I mean, it's always to provide an opportunity, and That's why I'm a little confused sometimes.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting you mentioned Syracuse because I want to read this quote from Jim Boeheim, their head coach, where just yesterday at their ACC Media Day, he said, everyone says the coach makes this and the players don't make anything. The player's only 17 years old. I've been working my whole life. There's a lot of 17-year-olds that don't make money. But like you mentioned, heck, you guys have guys in your locker room who are younger than that make money. And that's certainly what, this is probably exaggerating a little bit, but part of what this country is about is
right.
You're paid with what you deemed are worth in whatever profession you're at. And but I will say I can see a little bit of a slippery slope with sort of making it, if you allow the universities to pay whatever they deem the athlete is worth to them. Let's take Alabama football, for example. Mm-hmm. They've got more money for sure. And I think that the NCAA does pride itself a little bit on the parity. Now, Alabama's not the best example for that because the way they've been dominating, but they like to think they have an even playing field. And I think some of that is having your blinders on for what's going on. And these trials have brought that out, that there's money being moved. But you wonder if athletes, if it opens up, where that parity is going to lie. They love the NCAA tournament. It brings in over $1 billion for them every year, and the players aren't seeing any of that. But would you not worry about, some schools being able to afford to pay players more than others?
Yeah, I think some schools, let me go ahead and put this, I don't think universities should pay the players. I think the players should be able to capitalize on likeness and imaging and possibly jersey sales. I think that can be tricky too, because do you give them percentage of what their jersey sells when they're in school, or is it perpetuity? Is it when you leave, how much do you get posed? So I think that could be a little tricky. Which
is kind of what Adidas is. That's kind of, or shoe companies in general, that's kind of is paying for your likeness in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. But I think some universities probably could pay their athletes X amount or more money or whatever you want to say, almost as employees. And I think there are a lot of universities that couldn't afford to pay, athletes across the board more money, because I think then you run into issues with Title IX. When I was in school, I never once thought, and men's soccer, it's not really a profit sport by any means, and I never thought that I should have been receiving money from the university, such as as much as the basketball, football players did. Because for me, it's I'm in a sport that isn't generating that kind of revenue, and I don't see where I should get any more money, or money that that really some certain basketball players or certain football players are entitled to. Because then you got to do it from there, and you got to go all the way down to women's volleyball. Where
does it stop?
Exactly, right? And so. That's where I think, Alabama maybe obviously could do it, probably Duke could do it. But, UAB was one of those schools that, folded their football team.
Right.
And there's many reasons why. Some of it was money and some of it wasn't. But, I just think that a lot of universities also couldn't, unless you tried to do kind of that profit sharing of, universities and then splitting it equally amongst every university. But the big hitters are probably going to want that. It only really would benefit the little guys. And so it becomes a little tricky. And that's why I think I proposed, a plan. I've talked with a bunch of people just over the years, and I always said, what if every university was entitled to, kind of their own administration, per se, and for lack of a better term, an agent is on the board, a CPA is on the board, a money manager, all is on the board, and say you work for Ford, and I'm an elite level athlete in basketball, and you say, hey, I would like you to come to my dealership for an hour and sign autographs. I'll pay you $2,000. And I say, okay, well, I have to send you to the board. Let's say, if there's an example, I'm at KU. Yeah, I have to send you to this board. These are the contacts. They'll sign up the paperwork, make sure everything's legal and good to go, and go from there. Whereas, I think that that's a way for athletes to make money on, their likeness, or, they're just for kind of what they do.
Hey, it's Blair Kirchhoff, and if you're listening to this, you love Kansas City sports, whether it's the Chiefs, Royals, Sporting, Mizzou, KU, or K-State. And no one covers these teams like the Kansas City Star. If you currently subscribe to the paper or have a digital subscription, thank you for your support. And if you don't, here's a great offer. It's called Sports Pass. Unlimited digital access to every sports story and video on kansascity.com. And it's just $30 for the first year. It's the best sports value in town. Just 8 cents a day or $2.50 a month. You can't beat that. Subscribe now at kansascity.com/sportspass.
I guess maybe just to play devil's advocate, because I do like that plan. You almost wonder, though, if a booster could sort of filter money to an athlete through something like that.
Right, and that even has its holes. I mean, because then you're thinking not only just a booster, but you're thinking, like, what if, Joe Schmo down here wants to pay you $5,000 to, let's say, I don't know, come to his restaurant. And then 2 weeks later, Joe Schmo comes back up to you and says, hey, I need you to point shave for me. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, what do I do here kind of thing? And I get that there's, some very tricky situation behind that. And, I think, due diligence, the university, for lack of a better word again, the board, has to do their homework on, this scenario. Because I think that also, benefits, kind of counteracts the Title IX, because I'm a big advocate for Title IX, but I also think that it's ridiculous that, for me to expect, X amount of money, the same money that, whatever Chris Paul made for Wake Forest when he was there. He's not one of those, he wasn't one of those guys that, went to Duke. I mean, for the most part, if you go to Duke, you're already a known guy. I mean, Duke makes more people probably popular than, so he's Grayson,
or hated.
Yeah, that's true. Grayson Allen. I mean, he was easily like the lowest recruit, I think, in that class, and Grayson Allen became known. Whereas if you look at the current class, I think Zion Williamson he was going to be popular anywhere he went. Mm-hmm. It's like Michael Porter. I mean, Mizzou's attendance was terrible until he committed there, and here comes the season ticket. So I think every university is a little different, but it's always interesting because I think with the Title IX. It could go from, women's volleyball, softball, but you can't tell me that, Breanna Stewart at Syracuse or at UConn, Connecticut, wouldn't have had access to, endorsements and sponsorships when she was at UConn, or Alex Morgan at Berkeley. For sure. I mean, it really benefits to the people who excel in their sport. So I think that's an interesting thought and just concept that, I mean, it needs some tinkering, obviously, but
yeah, sure. But I mean, I think maybe you could put something in place that would sort of be maximums in that sort of situation, to prevent the problem that I mentioned. But what your solution, the problem that I think it solves is it's about the money that athlete is generating for the school and the program, because the only way that they're going to have the interest and, the autograph sessions that you mentioned is if they're a popular athlete. And if you're a popular athlete, you are bringing in money for your school in that situation. I mean, you look at like a Heisman Trophy winner in Baker Mayfield and the publicity he brought. Now, Oklahoma football doesn't really need that much help. Right. But his jersey's being sold. Mm-hmm. And it may not have his name on the back, but everybody knows when you see a number 6 jersey in the stands, whose jersey that is. Yeah. And so your solution, I think, at least allows the player to potentially profit off of that. But for the longest time, the NCAA is sort of hidden behind their amateurism label, and they call it one of their bedrock principles is amateurism. And under the rules of amateurism, you can't be paid a salary, you can't sign a contract with an agent or a professional team. And I think it's just been maybe the easy scapegoat for him. But this trial, all of a sudden, has probably brought to the public light what we all already knew, was there's money moving around, and the NCAA in some manner is going to have to address this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the amateur status is crazy because we all knew kind of what was happening. And you want to look away if you want, but if you just open your eyes, it's there. But then you even think about such a thing as workers' comp, because I saw the highlights from the Florida Vanderbilt game, and this guy gets destroyed on a crackback block, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no free education out there that I'm going to run on that field and get hit like that. Yeah. It just isn't any room and board. What's the point of even having free schooling if you're braining 5 to 10 years? You know what I mean?
And you've seen some of the star athletes, like Leonard Fournette took out an insurance policy on himself because he wasn't getting paid in college. but he knew that the money was going to come eventually,
Right.
and that's the only way he perceived avoiding something
Right.
like that.
I mean, I even contemplated doing that when I was in school.
Did you really?
Just to protect myself. Yeah. I mean, I think, it's just you have to worry that injuries do occur, and obviously, the contact sports if you play contact sports, and especially the higher contact sports or more aggressive contact sports, the more dangerous it is, and so you kind of have to protect yourself. And I mean, you don't even get insurance. You don't even get to see doctor post career or post college career on the university's dime. You have to do that on your own, and it's like, what is the point of running around out there if you're just going to be 5 to 10 years struggling in some aspect? And I'm thinking to myself as well, is this guy's, it happened on Saturday, he's supposed to go to class on Monday after that? Come on. There's no chance. There's no way I'm going to step foot in a classroom after getting hit like that.
Yeah.
To me, it's crazy. And I think that also, that's my thoughts on football, but man, it's almost like you sacrifice, X amount of players, and university makes their money, and they get their enrollment up, or they get their, registration up, and
more tickets sold and concessions sold because of tickets, jersey sales. I mean, there's so many ways that the universities make money.
Exactly. I mean, Wake Forest, I think, is a pretty known school, but there are a lot of people who don't know about Wake Forest. And when they made the Orange Bowl right the year before I got there, 2006, I believe, their admissions, I think were flowing in with more applications. And I mean, that's generating money just from the exposure of seeing Wake Forest. And
and you and I talked about that just off air a couple of weeks ago. That's an expensive program as well. Yeah.
I mean, it's not cheap to attend Wake Forest. So, and again, I know people on the other side of the argument saying they get free education, they get free room and board, and it's
the free education label has always bothered me in the sense that it's not free if you're providing a service. By definition, something is not free if you are returning a product, and then in this sense, your service is you're playing for the basketball team. You would not have the free education anymore if you quit the basketball team. Your free education would be gone. So it's not technically a free education. You are working to get that education.
And until, I forget what year it was, it wasn't guaranteed your scholarships all 4 years.
Right.
It was, year to year, and, whatever the case. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know if I'll be, here next year. I mean, not, and that's maybe the extreme, but it's something that you have to worry that. I mean, if you quit, they weren't entitled, or if you from an injury, they're not entitled to keep your scholarship. It's just, hopefully that they do right by you for, you committing your services or your body to the program. But and I get that, people want to use that it's free, and my argument's always, well, you could have gone to school for free, like, be better academically, be better athletic. Like, you could have done a lot of things and gotten to school for free or cheaper. Like,
and
you
also
had
made
that
money
ability
while you were there.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're in an academic scholarship situation, and let's say if you're the best football player in the country in college, you still are not making any more money than the guy who's also on scholarship on your team, theoretically.
Right.
Now, this isn't including the potential payments you're getting paid under the table or whatever, like we've seen come out. But if you are the best, kid at science in your college, you've got a lot of ways to make money while you're still in school that the other kids are not getting because they fall under the amateurism umbrella.
I mean, working was non-existent in college. I was so dedicated to academics and athletics that if I even wanted to have a job, I couldn't do it.
How many did anybody on your team have?
No, from what I remember, it was we made our work money in camps in the summer.
Okay, sure.
But during the year, I can't recall.
Just because of the time commitment that the sport required and everything?
And academics, the rigor, it's impossible almost. And I could be wrong. I mean, maybe there was one or two, but like a very, very small minority was able to do it.
Yeah.
And I guarantee it wasn't anyone that, was, one of our better players and better, or more dedicated, students in the classroom. It was just too much to handle. And so it's like, I think, I don't know if you know this about me. I was commuting back and forth my rookie year from San Jose to Wake Forest.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was. So my normal week would be
because you left early.
Yeah, I did
to go to the MLS draft.
And part of my contract agreement that I had was I wanted to stay for my spring junior year.
Okay.
And so what I would do with spring break, all those things, I'd go to San Jose. Or my normal week would look like,
wow.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'd be in class. Thursday, I would fly out from North Carolina to San Jose.
Wow.
Be there Thursday, Friday. Saturday, playing the game. Red eye back.
Jeez.
Get back Sunday morning. Drive straight from Charlotte Airport to Winston-Salem, about an hour and 20, 30-minute drive or so. Meet with professors or classmates or students to see what I missed and what I could do to get back on the core or par for the course. So I did that for a whole semester pretty much. And so I remember, but at that point I'm getting paid still, luckily. Yeah. And I remember finally getting to campus being like, I've got money to actually live.
Uh-huh.
Now, granted, it's probably more than X amount needed, but it was still like I didn't have to worry about if I wanted to try to afford this meal or not. I mean, I never was greedy or asked for much from my parents. I think I went to school with like $800 in my bank account, and that's what lasted me, a year and a half kind of thing. Wow. Somehow I didn't. I had a card too. I didn't. If I had an emergency, I'm sure my parents were taking care of it or whatnot, but I didn't ask for much. I somehow was able to budget, but there would be plenty of times that I ran out of meal swipes, and I'm like, well, I only really have like $100, so I got like 2 months left in this year. I don't know if I should go out to eat this, whatever. So it was like, it actually felt nice to be like, oh, I can actually like afford something.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And so I'll never forget that moment when the first check came through, and I was whatever, and I was like, what am I supposed to do now? And I mean, again, I think I was also, I took courses that had to do with money, and not that I was always pretty good with money anyways, but dealt with courses, and what better place to be than in college, learning about how to handle your money. And so that was actually an interesting time for
that's
me.
incredible.
Yeah.
Now, what they have added just since you graduated is this cost of attendance model, which pays athletes anywhere from, I think it's $2,000 to $6,000 annually. They get meals paid for, but I'm sure you got some meals paid for, but it's just I'm sure it's a certain set amount per day. Or
so I guess that example I gave was my first couple of years, and then my full scholarship I guess hit, and so then I was able to receive those benefits. And so
the first couple of years when you're on partial scholarship though, you don't receive?
No, it's all out of here. And so then when
even meals and everything?
Right.
Okay.
Had signed for a meal plan and all that, and it was soccer's 9.9 scholarship, I believe. So you do the math; it's 30 guys, 9.9. So there's a lot of
guys on full scholarship, maybe
a lot of are partial, lots of partial.
Yeah.
And so I think when it was then my junior year, I lived off campus, and I was able to afford an apartment with a roommate and basic groceries, and I was able to make do. My situation probably a little different. I think there were a lot of people who, try to take care of families. Some people had kids. Some people had their own immediate families that may have been struggling. So they were trying to, budget that and budget, what their lifestyle needed.
But you mentioned that there was interest in you after your sophomore year to come out, but that was one of the things that you felt like was a requirement if you were going to stay, was to be one of those full scholarship guys. We've heard that, I'm sure, for those reasons. Right,
and so that's what I mean. That was the only way I was going to go back, was I was on full scholarship, and which I was, and so then I became on full scholarship. But it was I think and again I could have left. It wasn't. I really wanted to stay in school academic wise and at least get further ahead. And then I don't think my family necessarily needed it. So it wasn't like something that I jumped at. I think if trying times, I would have absolutely left. And also at the same time, I also balancing possible Europe or whatnot, since being a free agent, I guess, in a sense, for soccer. But it was a lot that went into it, and I saw firsthand, basketball players who went pro, and I just saw kind of their struggle, and some voiced it to me just about how they weren't going to stay in any school any longer. It didn't make sense for them to, because what they potentially would be making is not even close to relative their scholarship, or even if they were in school getting endorsements and sponsorships, what we talked about. It would have helped, bridge the gap while they were there. But, I think when there's a time when your potential to move on, when you move on is so drastically higher than staying, it's a no-brainer.
I mean, they always, say that, well, an athlete can get a job like any other student can to supplement their income. Now, when I was in college, I actually did not. I worked during the summers. I worked during Christmas break. I worked during, spring break and things like that. But I felt like in order to get the grades I wanted to get, that I had to be so focused on my academics. Right. Now, journalism is a little bit different in the sense that you're not just in class and taking tests. You are actually out,
right.
Like I am here with you. I mean, you do cover teams and things like that, so it does have a little bit of an extra time commitment. But to imagine somebody, an athlete, having the requirements they have for school, the requirements they have for the team they're participating on, because luckily I've seen the behind the scenes and I know the time commitment that takes, but then to also somehow have a job and be able to make a commitment to that company, because you have to think about the fact that even if a company is willing to hire an athlete, they're going to want to have a guy on a set schedule. They're going to know that he can work on Saturdays or Sundays, and an athlete's schedule fluctuates. And I think it's an unfair solution to the issue is just to say, well, the athlete can get a job like everybody else can, because I mean, just how time demanding your schedules are.
Yeah, there's no set routine. I mean, you have some routines, but like traveling games, I mean, things that you don't even know you have, such as appearance. I mean, it's a very fluid situation. I mean, you could have set plans on a weekend that you think you have off, and that weekend is no longer off because of whether it be practice, your coach wants to do film, whatever the case, weightlifting, and that's your first obligation because you're there on scholarship, right? So you have to give that priority first, and then as well as your academics, and then everything else really is seen as second or third and fourth, fifth, and so it's very difficult. I just I don't, and I'm sure people do it. But what I would love to see is if let's say Alabama football, all their players got jobs. Let's see what Alabama's football record would be, and then let's see what Nick Saban's going to be saying, because I have a feeling Nick Saban isn't going to be wanting his players out there with jobs.
Yeah,
I think he's a pretty demanding coach from what I can tell. And if that record, wherever they are undefeated, goes to 500 or just over 500. There's some adjustments that are happening.
Right.
And while he might not say it, kind of what's the expectation and what's expected of you. And so I don't think that it's fair to say that you could just go get a job, because in all reality, it's not, unless whatever employer you're working for lets you come in when you want and when you leave when you want. But and there aren't many out there. And again, if you're dedicated to academics and athletics, it's just really tough.
So let's kind of go through, we've talked about maybe where these rules should go or maybe what they should be, but we know what they are currently. And this sort of brings us full circle to what's going on with these trials. And there's going to be, subsequent trials in February and April where more of this information is going to come out. You do wonder if the FBI is also looking to Nike and their schools as well, and if this is going to sort of be cyclical and just repeat itself with some of those schools. But I do have a little bit of an issue still with what's going on with the NCAA, because these coaches, these schools do know the rules. And even if you disagree with them, you still have to abide by the rules. So what's sort of your take on if, and this is a big if, but if schools have facilitated the payment, whether it be through shoe companies or whatever, what should the NCAA do about that?
I mean, I guess you have to go by the rule book at this very moment, and you'd have to deem some sort of punishment that's acceptable to it, but it could cause a chain reaction and sense of change for the betterment of players moving forward. I wouldn't care if they said, all right, well, throw it all out, let's start fresh, kind of thing.
Really? Okay.
I wouldn't, but I mean, I know it won't happen, because
I kind of look at this as almost like the steroid era in baseball. I mean, you had so many guys that did it that I'm sure some people looked at it and say, if I want to keep up, everyone else is doing this, I got to do it too. But to me, it's still black and white. The rule, you broke the rule. And, I've never had a Hall of Fame vote, but if I did, I'd be one of those guys that would not vote in the guys that have been proven to take them.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that, obviously this is on a major scale, and it's, it's pretty public now. But I mean, there are probably minor infractions that happen. Let me rephrase that. There are minor infractions that happen at even smaller schools. I mean, you can't even receive a meal from somebody. It's like, okay. I go out with my friends and I get the meals, and I go out with my friends and they get me meals just out of, we're just friends. And
is that something they drill in you like really early on as soon as you're on campus? You guys go over the rules?
We go over the rules, and I forget which rules are really drilled at us. I know that was definitely one of them. And it was like accepting benefits and gifts. It was
that's
like
even a meal.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, obviously like if you wanted to go out with a booster or, someone that, wasn't necessarily a familiar face. It couldn't get, actually, our head coach couldn't really even buy us meals. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's I know some. Right. I wish I could think of which coach it was, but there was a coach that paid like $100 meal for a kid that got busted for it.
It's unbelievable, and it's like if I go out and see my coach from Wake Forest, I'd buy him a meal. He'd buy me a meal still to this day, and it's like it's not like we're trying to get around the rules. It's just almost I don't know. Sometimes it's courteous. Sometimes it's just because you're friend. I mean, it's just a lot of respect. It's kind of interesting to hear some of these rules that are established.
It seems almost like it would be. Is it difficult as an athlete just to keep track of everything? Do you just sort of have to tell yourself, I can't take anything from?
Yeah, you just
from anyone.
You side on this. You err on the side of caution.
Okay.
You have to. And if that's what you're worried about, you have to probably say no well more than you say yes, and that's just kind of the way it is, right or wrong, whether you believe that it's right or wrong. So yeah.
Any I guess, but to kind of wrap this up, any anticipation or prediction about how the NCAA does handle this? Because one of the things that you and I have sort of discussed is just how widespread this likely is,
right? And
you wonder just how far down the rabbit hole the NCAA wants to expose itself, essentially.
Yeah. I know, that's a tough one. Do you really want to shed light to all of these most likely infractions that have occurred? But if you do, unfortunately, you got to take them all down. I mean, you can't choose situation by situation. If everyone or if a lot of schools have done it, you can't pick and choose which schools you want to take down. So and I wish it didn't even have to come to that. I wish everyone was compensated or whatever, and it didn't have to be that way. But it is that way. And so if the NCAA is going to actually take action, they have to then treat every university the same. And will they? That's a different story. I mean, they also know that the hit that they might be suffering from or potentially suffering from,
and for sure affect their. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, they estimated that they made $1 billion in revenue in 2017, and that the NCAA tournament drew in that much money alone.
Right. But they're amateur status. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So
again, we'll see. When it comes to money, people,
they don't want to give up a slice of the pie. Essentially, what's happening.
And money is power. Money rules all. And people, make decisions based on money a lot of the time. And so, at every level, and I don't think the NCAA is going to be any different. So we'll see. They don't want to hit the bottom line. They don't want to start seeing red. I mean, that's a game changer when they start seeing red. So I don't know what they're going to do. But if you're going to clean house, you got to clean house fairly.
Right.
And if you're not going to clean house, then you got to let everyone go. Don't pick and choose. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, we'll see where it goes from here. Like I said, there's a couple more trials, and maybe this topic, sort of new developments, help us have another discussion about this. But we're going to stop there for now. Ike, thanks again for joining us, as always.
Yeah, no problem.